Oh, I can hear that. Can you hear it? Oh,
Yeah, it was touching something static.
all right. It wasn't.
You're full of electricity.
Yeah.
You've been charged somewhere.
That's right. I was charging.
Hello.
How are you?
Hello, Di. How you doing? You look lovely
Good.
today.
Thank you.
Nice and orange.
Yes, just been to gave an International Women's Day talk at QBE.
Nice.
Which has been a great morning, a fantastic morning.
Yep.
Speaking to the workforce
Yep.
based out at Parramatta in Sydney Southwest. Very diverse workforce who came to listen listen to me sharing my journey. In establishing Dawn, the importance of what Dawn is trying to achieve out there in our society,
Yep.
is shifting that leadership dial for across many institutions, mainstream institutions.
So what got you excited was specific topic was the quota.
Yeah, look, I got so of course, we talk about the lack of diverse representation across many of our industries or in sectors, and towards the end a couple of people came up to me and thanked me for sharing my story, but one gentleman raised the issue of quota, right? He didn't believe that a quota was the right thing to do because he felt that having a quota would mean that a woman can replace a man's job.
Right.
I said, well, in actual fact, I agree with him, first of all, in terms of quotas. I don't believe that quotas would address the whole issue of representation.
Yep.
At the leadership level. So, again, I suppose I want to emphasize where Dawn is focused on. And our focus is about shifting that leadership representation, that level there. So I said to him, of course, I tend not to also agree with quotas because,
So do you personally find that organizations are pursuing those quotas?
Look, there are many organizations
unconsciously?
Many organizations are purposely
Yeah.
talking about setting a quota
Right.
or a target.
Right.
Now, there are differences,
Yeah.
and there, I suppose, there's a fine line between the differences.
Yeah.
A quota is basically, you said, okay, we want to have 30% of women on board, and we need to meet that 30% of quota.
Right.
Setting target is more aspirational.
Yeah.
So they might say, look, by 2025, we would like to have 30% of women on board, but it's not a mandatory thing.
Right.
But I think setting a quota is when you make it mandatory. It's part of the policy of an organization that they have to meet.
So see, the way I interpret it, let me put myself in that guy's shoes. Regardless how you approach it, it seems a little bit, biased. Period.
In terms of what, target or quotas?
Yeah.
Look, it is a bias for a particular cohort in the community that you want to identify to empower or to lift them up to give them the opportunity to lead. And obviously there are many layers, right? When we talk about quotas, are you talking about quotas for a workforce that will have 50% culturally diverse, linguistically a diverse group of people in the workforce? But if you talk about quota at the leadership level, because obviously there are many across many of our leadership level across many institutions, it's a fact that is predominantly dominated by men at this stage, men in their 60s, from a particular group of society, from a particular school, from a particular network.
Yeah.
So that is a given.
Yeah.
So how do we shift that in the context of our changing world, where we're becoming more complex? We are more, it's the global effect of having to deal with, businesses and clients and customers from around the world, and not just in our backyard. So how do we prepare ourselves, our organization, our business, our company to actually engage in that space?
Yeah.
So I think quota is, I wonder sometimes if quota is kind of announced as a company policy or an organization policy because they want to be seen to be addressing that issue.
Right.
And then because there's so much antagonism around quotas, some organizations say, okay, let's set a target because it's a lesser impact than a quota, right? So you're not pressured to do it.
See, but I guess what I'm trying to say is, but for a lot of those men, they might not interpret it that way, period, because you're saying you're still aiming for that KPI or aspiration for that KPI, even though it's not mandatory. You know what I mean? So I'm trying to find, that's a great thing. So depending on the workforce, the nature of the work and organization itself, like I'm starting to see a lot of lollipop girls, in a very male-dominated space.
Same here.
Yeah.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
Suddenly you kind of, when you drive down a street or down the road and then there's a construction, taking place on the road or whatever, and you see more women holding, as you call them, the lollipop girls. That's right. Girls. I'm thinking, that's amazing. Yeah. And I hope that they will be able to progress further on than just holding that lollipop signs. Yeah. But obviously there would be. Yeah. But yes, there are more women now in that sector. Yeah. And to the point, I said to another gentleman who approached me at this morning sort of talk, he was saying that he asked me, do you think it's going to be a generational thing? Yeah. Whereby, because women are now more increasingly participating in the workforce,
I think that's what it is.
That they eventually will now, in the long run, will be in a leadership position, rather than.
So, see, I think it's the way we communicate it, right? So we should be looking at, hey, how do we encourage more women to take on the leadership position, rather than saying, hey, we need more women in that quota to fill it up. So it's more of the way we.
And that's what I said to both these gentlemen. Interestingly enough, both these gentlemen were of Anglo-Celtic background or Anglo-Saxon background who approached me to talk about it. I said, look, definitely it's about encouraging that, to have that conversation, to ask women and people of diverse backgrounds or people with disability to think about what they can do to contribute to the organization, to the community in which they live. Yep. So it's not necessarily saying, you have to appoint me as an Asian, onto a board because of who I am. Yeah.
So that brings back to that Google lawsuit case, which is, based on that quota, they are specifically being biased to find specific,
Well, look, there will be plenty of, I think, critics of diversity or inclusion and diverse kind of set policies or targets or aspirations. And then there'll be those that are very pro to the point of saying, okay, we need to have the quota to meet it. I think from Dawn's perspective is about encouraging us to have that conversation both from the pro and the cons, and actually finding a middle ground that we can actually see the benefit, but also that there's a downside of promoting somebody based on the fact that their gender or cultural backgrounds, if they don't have the capability, if they don't have the experience or to contribute.
The word is meritocracy.
Meritocracy. Malcolm Gladwell, who's the author of Blinked, as well as Tipping Point. Yeah. Have you read A Tipping Point? It's a great book. It's about numbers. Yeah. You tip over an issue or something will happen, like you'll get that momentum based on the numbers, so that you reach that tipping point is when people will take up on it. It's kind of a marketing tool. Said that we live in a world that's we're too far from, or we're still a long way to go in terms of really appointing people based on merit, because merit comes from the perspective of the person that is the dominant group. So we're a long way away from actually really talking about meritocracy. Like the people who talks about merit are mainly the people in position of power. Yeah,
I see.
Right? And who are the people in position of power?
Yep.
So, and I can guarantee, and I can tell you, say for instance, in the political arena,
Yeah.
in our parliaments,
Yeah.
both state and federal, you know, having kind of navigated that system and still navigating that system,
Yeah.
I've come across so many of these men who have been elected,
Yeah.
who have been promoted,
Yeah.
but I can guarantee you not based on their merits.
Yeah.
Not because of what they know,
Yeah.
not because of their, the work that they've done out there in the community and the years of experience that they can bring to the parliament,
Right.
but it's based on who they know and the numbers that they've crunched and how they can actually align with. So when it comes to meritocracy, I think the word is overused, and I think it can be stretched in terms of what is merit.
Yeah.
What does it mean? I mean, in the ideal world, it's based on your skills and based on what how effective you are.
I totally agree.
But I think when we talk about diversity, inclusion, and gender in leadership, to bring that up, it's just, to me, it's
it's
a furphy.
Yeah. So this is a very general mindset thinking, right? So if you look at the finance minister or a transport minister, you would think the merits will require that transport minister to have some kind of engineering.
Exactly, but they don't.
Yeah.
So therefore, or a finance minister or the treasurer to have some kind of financial acumen.
With the CPA, CA.
Exactly. No, they don't. So therefore, don't go down the merit path with me.
Yeah. So that's why I'm using that as an example.
Yeah.
Saying here is the absolute identifiable issue.
Yeah, but then going back to the discussion this morning about more women participating in the workforce, so therefore we will now see some of these women in leadership roles in the future.
Yeah.
This is according to one of the gentlemen, and I agree. I said yes, perhaps there will be a generational change in that, because more women are now participating and they're having more access to opportunities to lead, then we will see an increase in the numbers of women in leadership roles. However, I think there should be a qualifier, because a lot of women do step out and have kids halfway through their career.
Yeah.
So therefore, when they get back into the workforce, those who choose to return to the workforce will have it'll impact them in that progression into a leadership role. So I think we need to maintain this conversation around women in leadership in order first to encourage women to come back. Secondly, so that organizations who let go of these women who goes out of the workforce and come back, that when they come back, that they actually have a kind of an opportunity to continue to build on the career. But also, it's similar to those of other cultural or other backgrounds or other experiences. So it's not just gender. So we need a gender diverse and inclusive workforce so that we can actually have a more different leadership picture in a few years' time. Because we can't be operating the same way over and over. It'll be the same group of 10 men or whatever running the country and running everything. Well, it has to change, really.
We're not innovating society-wise. We're not pushing the boundaries. That's fascinating. So from a quota point of view, I'm
just looking at up here what Nadine has put up. If you do impose quotas, how can you avoid the pitfalls? It says that the debated suggested that quotas can be very effective and even well activated if implemented with care. Some actions include change the narrative, that's true. Establish a critical mass, that's so right.
A quota of 20% women
is unlikely to perpetuate any positive change and will instead incur negative reflexes. That's interesting, because I suppose there's this argue that you need to aim for 50% of women in leadership, right? Because they said it's no point going for 30%, because you want the argument is that you won't be able to catch up, and therefore it becomes negative because you don't do it, it'll have no effect. So it's better to go for 50% because it forces organisation to think about the makeup of the leadership pipeline, I suppose. And as somebody who's very much against quotas because I don't want to be appointed based on the fact that I'm Asian or woman, but based on the fact that I can contribute and have knowledge and can have a skill set that the organisation really values. I'm kind of coming to not to realisation, but can understand where that pro-quota sort of argument comes from.
Yeah.
But it is a dangerous, I think, a very dangerous
implementation. If we
will go down the head and implement that, it can be dangerous because it actually has a negative impact.
Yeah.
Because people will come up and say, "Oh, well, you appointed there because you're a woman and you're Asian, not because of what you know." So I hate the quotas for that fact. But if you talk about target, and I think more organisations are talking about target now, it has less of a negative connotation. In that,
see, like for me, it's just a spin of words. How do we encourage more women to others to be part of the organization?
That's right.
And then you propose that to all the current existing, established, people there. They might have a different thinking. Say, oh, maybe we should do this, maybe we should do that, and that changes the whole tone. But depends
on the language. So if it depends on the group of if there's a group of men at the moment at the leadership level, and you want to talk about quotas, and they're against quotas, how do you think they're going to react? They're going to say, no, we're not going to accept quota, forget it. But if you talk...
I'm trying to sneak it in.
But if you talk about, say, target, and you aspire to have and I think it's all in the language.
Yeah.
If you aspire so that you want your business to be able to go out there and sell that product to a mass audience that is culturally diverse, then it's important, I think it's imperative that your business leadership team of your business understand what that looks like and what that means.
But see, I maybe this is just me being stereotyping, but from a leadership level, they'll be like, that's fine. If a branch in where most Asian population is, perfect, get them some Asian.
But that's stereotyping.
Yeah.
That's definitely that's not target nor quotas. It's stereotyping.
But for them, they'd be like, we've got our quotas.
Yeah.
We've got our diversity. But in a board level, they're still the same.
They're still the same, exactly. Yeah. So I think, so for what Dawn is trying to do is to try and shift that whole. It's not about quotas or target. It's about really that mindset of how you as the leader of your organization, the CEO, managing director, how do you ensure that your pipeline is really inclusive? And some people even hate the word inclusive, but let's make it's that representative of the market, of the population, of your customers, and your clients.
Do you know what would be interesting is we should bring someone who asked you about the quota to have a conversation, because it's more imperative for me to understand how their mindset and then work out and say, hey, so how would you go about applying without using the word quota, because you're obviously affected by that inclusion talk, and normally he's throwing the question back to them, and they might have an interesting perspective or solutions to solve it. That's just me trying to break this down. This quota.
We should get. I mean, if anyone in the audience listening to our podcast who are against quotas and can actually say, look, I run an organization or I run a business, and I don't believe in quotas, and can share with us. I mean, would love to hear from them, because we'd like to actually have some of that information kind of synced in as well, so that we can actually have enough, data.
Because a lot of them would be like, you know what, it is what it is. Like, if she wants to get the job, she's gonna get it. She will work hard for it, or the Asian guy, whatever. That's their perspective, But then the moment you're imposing it, and that's where they get defensive about it, and that's when things go.
So that's why, and part of the reason why I don't believe and I don't support quotas, for the fact that as a minority. I mean, I don't think I'm a minority, but anyway, just for the terminology's sake.
Depend where you are. In
that's right. I think that it's it's better to actually talk about how. How we can assist you, or what do you need in order to be a leader, if you want to lead anyway.
I think it's super important.
And the other thing about leadership is that some people said, as people of non-English speaking backgrounds in particular said, I don't want to be a leader.
Yeah.
I don't want all those
I just want to do my
responsibilities.
job, but
I was
get
gonna
paid a lot of money.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. What are you guys talking about this leadership thing for?
Yeah.
So, but then it's not about leadership to lead an organization, but leadership in terms of your own being, you know, how you can actually participate and be part of the wider society and contribute. That's from my perspective.
I think that goes for any startup or innovative organization. You know, it's not just you've been placed for that job. Yes, you can do that job, but what else can you bring on top of that job to enhance that organization?
That's right.
Yes.
And in the future, we and I said that this morning as well. I said, guys, you know what? We'll be competing not just with one another as human beings, but we'll be competing with machine learnings and robots.
Yeah.
So really,
it's all over.
Yeah, we have to actually work together. You know, in order, because this is the society we're going to be living in the future. I see as coexisting with robots.
Yeah, but it's so easy to blame people.
Well, tell me about it. It's a human thing.
You're like, oh, no, it's that group that's taking over, or that elite group creating robots, so we have no jobs. And
that's right. It's a human behavior.
Yeah, so we'll leave that for another day.
That's right.
But what else would you like to add to this quota talk?
Look, I think as organizations try to figure out, find a way, you know, to encourage, you know, people within the organization to step up and I think looking at how to set up their business for the future, I think they shouldn't think of leadership not just to tick the box of, okay, we've done this now for our business. We've met with diversity, we've met with gender. You know, it's a tick box thing. I think the message is that organizations have to look at how we live and work in the future, how that's going to change, and how do we create an organization, and how do we, you know, empower a community, a society, but also create. I know this sounds a bit.
A utopian society.
Utopian society here, but really, Australia, one of the most diverse societies in the world.
Yeah.
And having left a war-torn country, my dream is to live in a world where there's no wars. That's my dream. You know, so it's not everybody's dream. They probably would like to continually be in the arms trade, but for me, how do you create a world whereby people respect one another?
Just love each other.
Based on their differences. Don't even go there, Leonard.
Okay. Right. However, I'll bring this back because I think this is why it's so valuable that organizations need to have this conversation. Right. So the conversation we implement in Westpac and other organizations really bring out different perspectives, different areas of thoughts, and how one might react to the word inclusiveness or hey, we need more women, and then suddenly that person might have different interpretation of that word. But by having that conversation, we could identify and then find a solution.
That's right.
Through that process.
It's about sharing.
And if you don't have that conversation, you're just assuming and applying a D&I strategy that could backfire. This is why, you know, they should engage with our conversation with Dawn, you know, subscribe to our channels and
listen
ask
to our
us
podcast.
Questions. Ask us questions.
Drop us a line and tell us what they think about really in their workplace, and you know, encourage their leaders, encourage their staff to really be part of the conversation, to explore, because I think conversations are very important. Having conversations, genuine conversations, because at the end of the day there'll be barriers, you know, broken if we actually be able to talk to one another.
Well, I think that's the thing. Like, I always try to bring in an unbiased mindset.
But we're always biased. You have to remember that.
I agree. There will always be stereotype and biases that's inbuilt unconsciously. But at any given time, I will always try to open up to a different perspective. At least put my mind and my actual living into their perspective and go, why is that guy thinking that way? Okay, well, let's find out. And then out of that, you could go, oh, I see. Okay, maybe then we should treat it differently.
But to also be mindful that a lot of people will not have that mindset.
And that's what we want to encourage.
That's right. Because, you know, in the workforce, not everybody is going to be very flexible or open to how others think.
Yeah.
And it's their perspective that's more the right perspective.
So that's why we're here to change the world.
Well, we were not trying to change the world. What we're trying
One
to do is
person at a time.
yes, that's true. Trying to change the world one person at a time. But that time, I think we'll go back around circle because one person will talk to, and then go back. And they because you know what?
Yeah.
This is where the fascinating thing with our brain.
Yeah.
It's until we know how to rewire it
Yeah.
to operate differently.
Yeah.
We go back to the same mentality
Yeah.
that we've always had.
So that's why we need to do another one on growth mindset and
Yes.
fixed mindset. I
Love
think
to.
super
Yep.
important.
Yep.
Yeah. So well, thank you, Dai. That was really interesting.
Thanks, Leonard. Well, thank you very much to the listeners out there. Please send in your ideas that you'd like us to podcast and discuss, and would love to hear from you.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, keep going out there, Dai, and see what's going on in the corporate world and bring back the gossip.
Yes.
See you guys.
See ya. Yeah.
It's gonna be brutal.